Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Wolfram Language Design Review. Today is a bit of a meta review because we're going over projects that are in various stages of gestation, mostly waiting to be started. All right, let's start with language completeness and consistency. All right. Okay, by the way, each of these should be on the global project list for these big items, which we need to confirm. Okay. Variables. Okay, so here one of the things I want to solve is I want to call it E, and I want it to be not the exponential E. Am I making
Yep,
sense?
that was the agenda.
Okay, fine. All right. So,
Um, right.
my initial thought there is it's an autocomplete. I mean, just like we've got this idea of matrix symbol, I kind of think this is working reasonably well, this stuff. What do other people?
I don't think this is the same as matrix symbol because matrix symbol, right? The matrix symbol itself doesn't get like definitions, right? Right. You don't say matrix symbol of M equals five or even,
Fair
list
enough.
list of five. Um,
Is that
you know,
true? You can't do that?
you shouldn't be able to do it. It's protected.
Okay. Well, okay. So to me, the formal symbol stuff is not working fantastically. I mean, I end up using it quite a bit, but I'm not a big fan. And being able to replace, that the dot is annoying to me in most settings. By the way, Itai, did you hear about the hold form discussion? Because I think it's relevant to this as well.
Vaguely, I got some vague email, but you know, if you know, I don't know exactly.
I was planning on talking about this with Itai tomorrow when we normally meet, but
Okay.
I didn't prep him for today though.
Okay. So, I just want an indication, not an immediate indication, but an indication on hover that the thing is a hold form. And I'm concerned about uh, um, that I want to standardize this inactive coloring versus hold form coloring. And I was suggesting that on
No, no,
mouse.
no, no. We no, there's no standardizing these things. These are two completely different things with different properties and different use
Well,
cases.
I understand
They
that, but
should they should they should look different.
okay, all right. But I just don't like the brown color of this. This will not look like anything because hold form on its own won't look like anything. It's just what happens on mouse over.
Okay.
But okay, in any case, you know, I'm not a fan of this A dot thing, even though I think I invented it. I don't know whether, but this is what we have to solve here.
You invented it twice, actually.
Right. Once there were two dots.
Yeah.
Okay, well, the dots are going extinct. The two, then one, then
Feel
Next,
like
it's
it's
a half a
a
dot.
feel like it's a countdown to something.
yeah, right. The okay. Well, I mean, we know we need to discuss this, the variables
Right. We
thing.
had a meeting scheduled, it had to be
Just
canceled,
okay,
and,
fine.
and we'll reschedule it when, all the relevant people are back from the hospital because, one of them is having his hips replaced this week.
Oh gosh, the um the um
As a brief comment on the hold form, there's probably other things like annotation or other forms that have the same.
wait a minute. That's what am I doing?
Shouldn't
That
that
should be
that should have maybe it's because we don't have a status area anymore. No, no, this version still has a status area.
Oh,
Right, shouldn't that
sorry,
appear
I
in the status?
sorry, I was looking at something else related to the hold form. I didn't see what you're.
no, why
Shouldn't
am I not getting
or do
anything?
you
Well,
I mean, I
Yeah.
think annotation only shows up in the status area if you give like the third argument status area or something.
Yeah, I mean, annotation isn't something, so far as I know, isn't something that is primarily about interactivity in any way.
Yeah. No,
Well,
I
no,
agree.
I'm just saying that it's a thing that is invisible.
Sorry. Okay.
You
Yes.
know,
Sandra on a live stream is commenting that putting E in a module works. That's a bit horrifying. I guess it can. I mean, I'm sure if it escapes, it doesn't work.
and if you have E in the expression in the second argument, it's
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
toast.
yeah.
Okay. Well, we know what we're doing with variables. We don't know how to solve the problems, but we know what the issue is. The primary thing is being able to have some, so if you guys have a proposal, it'd be wonderful. But I'd like to solve the formal symbols problem at the same time as we solve, basically what do we want? We want symbols that can't have values set, that are merely formal, and we want symbols that first of all, it's purely formal symbols without settable values, and we want symbols, keyboard symbols, E, I, etc., usable for non-standard purposes. Those are our two objectives, I believe.
Okay.
I believe you've also wanted, subscripted variables.
Yes. Subscripted variables, e.g. in patterns.
Which is, I think, a completely different problem, to be clear.
Maybe it is.
I mean, the first two are sort of input user assistance type problems. The last one is a deep language problem.
I'm not sure that's right, because I think as soon as we can, okay, so hold on a second. Subscripted variables or exotically named variables. In other words,
like 2D variables.
Yeah, or like variables that are graphics, things like that. In other words, it's not obvious to me that symbol of, for example, let me do this. What happens if I do this?
It will yell at you.
I see. Okay.
There is the old notation package, which had symbolize and notation to kind of.
Yes.
I remember those used to be
right,
ways.
but the thing is that, I mean, sure, those were exotic things, but the I wasn't really an I, right? If you had an X of I, right, that just turning a graphics into a symbol, fine. You create a fake name for it, and it parses to that fake name. But what happens when you want to match that against X underscore blank?
No, I agree. I think it's just, look, there's pure naming like x min, okay? If x min, you don't want to set min to 7 or something. X sub I, you might think you want to loop over I.
Right. So you can make x min right now. I mean, it gets a sign, right? And you can say equals 7 because subscript is not protected.
I know. But I think we want something that walks and talks like a symbol. Yeah. I mean, I think we want something which is basically a symbol head that can have other stuff inside it. Probably. And I mean, as far as the symbol table is concerned, this is not that big a deal. The issue is, if...
Right. Well, as long as it's still just a single symbol and not a compound thing, right?
Exactly. Right. I know. But that's why I think that is what we can, and all these years later, I think the idea that X sub I could have its I be, without being subscripted, without being a full expression, to have its I be reached into, I think is not hopeful. But I think the notion that a symbol could have a name that isn't the standard name, and how do you enter that symbol? Well, you either have to type symbol, or, and the new thing of modern times is there's a user assistance mechanism for entering it. In other words,
Okay.
it could perfectly well be the case that if you type X, that the X min symbol could show up as an autocomplete, which we didn't have. Back when we were trying to design this for version 3, we didn't have that degree of freedom.
Yes. John, how much fun will you have with that autocomplete?
I actually don't think it will be too bad.
Okay, good.
All right. So, I mean, the provisional thought here, the rough direction is, symbol with anything as payload, and possibly possibly, and this is a new thought, and it maybe crazy, but a symbol that is something like this, that looks like an X, unless you mouse over it, and
Right, and it automatically protects it, right? That
yes,
notation automatically protects it.
yes. So those are some thoughts. Let's see where we go with that. I mean, I think that the important thing is you type E, and you have it gives you an autocomplete that allows you to get an E that isn't the E you thought it was, type thing. And I mean, I will say that I'm very happy with this mechanism where you go, oh my God, I'm not happy with that. That's kind of horrifying, John.
Well,
that's I think.
Yeah, well, I mean, right. That's because we want to give sort of an input for me.
I know. That's fairly horrible.
I mean,
that's
it's difficult to know what should have been done that was better.
I don't know. That's separate discussion. Okay, I just want to say that the thing I'm very happy with, I like the UX for, is I type that %, I hit enter, and I get that, except that's interesting. Why did we
Did
get
it evaluate it?
That's odd. Okay, I leave that to you as a figure out what's going on there. Okay, did you capture that, Carla?
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So, but this idea, you enter some, if there was an E there and it had an autocomplete here that was the other E, and I had to hit enter to get to it, I'd be pretty happy. Does that make sense? And with the formal, go ahead.
No, I was just saying that makes sense. I was acknowledging that makes sense.
Okay, fine. Okay, and the way that we would indicate that it's not the E you thought it was is probably by a mouse over on the alternate E, and possibly a mouse over on the ordinary E, because I don't think it's that, the cost of a mouse over on the ordinary E and the ordinary I.
I know. I think I know. I think that if it's a not EE, that we should create a font variation.
Maybe. I mean, it's what we did with
I
dot.
think that's just really, really confusing. If
well, let me remind you
things,
that the output E is not an E. Right? This would only be.
But when you're looking at input.
Well, fair enough. Okay, your point is, yeah, okay. I guess what I really care about is the output E. Yes, all right. I don't disagree that a font variation on input is reasonable. Some kind. Background-ish color or something. I don't know what. Okay, because the output is, the output, it would just be an ordinary E, because you know that if it's an actual ordinary E in output, it can't be the exponential E. Make sense?
Right.
Is that right?
Unless you did I suppose if we did a / input form, then you would see that it's not an ordinary E, right? But
yeah. All right. I think we've got a good, this is going to be good. Okay. Okay. Let's continue here. Supplied. By the way, I've started to use, I've started to use this, and I like it quite a lot. That was a bad example, but you get what you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes.
So I mean, just give me a sense for, would this be a case for supplied? No, this is not a case for supplied. This is an output case.
This is like the dual of supplied. What do I want to get out from the
Yeah, okay.
function?
So the supplied thing would be something like map supplied, F, comma, quotes, expression, index, whatever. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I mean, this is a good thing, it seems to me. How is the design process going for it?
Well, we came up with let me just say and then ask Ian to elaborate. So we came up with a rough design, and now Ian is prototyping, an implementation in the context of tree functions to see how the design feels. And because, vacation and conferences, I haven't had a chance to check in with him in a month. So Ian, what can you tell us?
So I think we've got a good design to start trying to make prototypes and see if the design is flexible enough for all of the applications. I just checked, by the way, the order of arguments should be reversed for your supplied there. You can also just do supplied of a pure function, and it picks up the name slots. So you could do supplied of hash expression ampersand.
Yes.
Which I think will be fairly popular. And
Yeah, but I don't understand. Are you sure the argument order should be reversed?
Well, that's what we came up with.
Yeah,
And
okay,
I think
right,
it
fine.
makes sense. And I think it actually makes sense, right? It's the variables and then the function, right? That's just
Yeah.
like function.
Yeah, fair enough. That does make sense.
So I've implemented some prototypes for trees. I think we want more examples, like a map example for full discussion. I don't think it would be hard for me to at least make a
Okay.
small prototype for
Fine.
that.
Do we have a
And-
list of the functions that could have supplied in them?
We have
Yes.
a list, whether it's a complete list, I'm not willing to guarantee at this point.
It's not a
but
complete list, but it's a very large
Let me
list.
give an example. I could imagine Nest having a
Yes.
supplied that has an,
Every nest, map, fold type function could have it. Also lots of options like color function, lots of things, vertex shape function, lots of things where you kind of need to know the order of the arguments, and there might be fewer things that you actually want to feed into the function or more things like an index.
Right. This is a good thing.
And I'll say that in the 14.2 release cycle, we got some utility functions implemented in private context because this partially overlapped with tabular. I believe tabular ended up adding a supplied keys option.
Yes.
So
yes, I think. Yeah, right. Okay. Yes, sir. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
we can bring this back for a discussion.
As far as I'm concerned, both this symbols thing and this thing are important high priority items. Okay, let's keep going.
Okay.
Dealing with floating point exceptions in imported data. What the heck is this?
Right. So nans plus minus infinity, arguably signed 0 if you're,
Yeah.
if you're going to be a
Okay.
purist about.
But what is it doing now? Well, surely we've done something on these for the last million years.
Well, depending on, exactly how it's implemented, it will either fail or it will just sort of read the memory. And then when you try to use it, you get something completely unusable.
I'm sorry, what I don't understand. Imported data, as in I've got a spreadsheet and it has a nan in it. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, or you have a this has come up more often in the context of, say, the Python external evaluate. That's the thing I'm looking for.
There have really been a number of bug reports about this because it ends up emitting something to the front end which is nonsensical and can't be sent back to the kernel.
And what's worse is if you extract a nan from right. So say you get the result as a numeric array, right? So you have a nan somewhere inside your numeric array, and then you take part, so you extract the nan. Then you get something that formats as nan backtick because it's a real number, so it appends the precision mark to it, and that's obviously something you can't.
So why aren't you getting back like indeterminate or something?
Because that's hard, and right, because the kernel wasn't set up right. The kernel was set up to never generate, right. The kernel was set up to never generate nans. They were supposed to be exceptions and would be, go away before they, ever propagate.
So just explain to me the minimal scenario where you generate one of these.
If you do an external evaluate and do something that generates a nan, can you, try that.
What language?
Python. Okay, well that's fine. What maybe if you make it a list, so you put brackets around it.
Square brackets.
Yep. Okay, so this, I guess they've made it detect these cases, but there are cases where you're importing a NumPy array, or you're doing something.
Well, I don't understand why this isn't part of the external evaluate system.
Well,
this is not something for import.
But because it's coming from all sorts of places, right? It's
okay. Is it coming from import? Import deals with this. Yeah.
Right. Well, yes, but first of all, people would like to be able to import data that has such things. You're right. There are. What's. I don't know what.
I could do comma separated values here. Was this going to do anything?
Okay. Right. So import tries to detect these, but basically the problem is, the more, right. Okay. So we have external evaluate, and then we have library link things, and then we have link to this. So there are just more and more ways these things can be generated. Right.
So I mean,
and the other thing is that people would like to import these things, right? So right. So because that just returned a list, it could do missing of not available. But suppose you imported that as as a numeric array. You use some format that imports as a numeric array. Well, then your choices are either fail or allow the nan into the numeric array.
Okay. So this is something that is a discussion of our internal data structures and how they deal with nans, things like numeric array. That's really what that seems like. That's the key point. Can numeric array as a piece of, a raw data structure contain a nan? And I thought we'd address that, and this isn't the group that would normally be talking about that.
We have not addressed that, and B.
Okay, but I mean, there are folks like Piotr and all these people who've been working on numeric arrays. Obviously, they need to be part of a discussion about that.
Hence, the currently discussing in small groups. There's Piotr's group. There's the front end piece. So I'm talking to John and Ian H.
Okay.
There's the external evaluate piece. So I will need to talk.
All right. Okay. Fine. So it sounds to me like you have this not necessarily under control, but at least you're moving forward the discussions. We're not yet ready to have a discussion about what this means in terms of user level design. Is that a true statement?
That is a correct statement.
But your point is this is a problem that's showing up in a bunch of places and we need to do something about it.
Correct.
Okay. I can't assess how important it is without seeing those cases, really. But I believe you. Okay, manipulating held expressions. This is one of those projects that, I don't know, have we had design meetings about this so far or not?
We've had multiple very long design meetings about this.
What came out of them?
Nothing. basically more discussion.
But did we have proposals for what to do?
Not really. I don't think. I mean, it's been a while since we had one, but
right. So, I mean, let's just understand the objective here. So, I mean, we have the expr struct, for example, which is a completely, inert version of expressions.
Yep.
I mean, I think we should, okay, what is this for? What this is for is, for example, the compiler and things around the compiler are consumers of this. This
No,
is
no, this is not at all.
no, it should be consumers.
Steven,
yeah.
Let me finish. The expr struct came from the compiler, and this is not a compiler issue. This is a language interface issue of you have a held expression and you want to do surgery on it. Now, I suppose part of the problem is that part of the issue of why we never had anything actionable is because every time we had a meeting, you had a different opinion about what the problem actually was. But I think, or what the goal was. But right, you have, hold of blah, 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 and now you want to do surgery on it.
Right. I want to be able to transform that expression somehow.
Yep.
By using pattern matching, and I want to be able to have the pattern, hold if A blank equals A blank, B blank, C blank. I want to somehow be able to transform this with that held expression. But that's one of the types of things. But then, for example, the thing that's always complicated is you say length of this held thing. Is it the, how does it, as we used to say in version 1, rodentify, burrow into the expression?
Right. So it's how do you force evaluation exactly when you want it without, leaking? And, how do you apply length at the right level?
Yep.
Right.
This is hard.
Right. Because if you did something naive, like, hold of if blank, 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 goes to length of, list containing the X blank, then you will, right, then if any of those X's evaluate and have side effects, then you'll have just generated those side effects.
By the way, I see John just sent through something. I just want to go back to the previous discussion here. Just sent through an example.
Okay.
That, but okay, there it is. Numeric array.
Yeah, so that looks perfectly reasonable, but if you normal of that, you're going to get something very bad.
What the hell is that?
That's a nan followed by, right? Right. So we have no special code for nan, and nans are reals. And so it goes to the code for formatting reals. It formats the mantissa and the other thing, that name escapes me at the moment, which are nan. Yeah, and then it adds the precision mark because it's
oh my god,
because it's a machine precision number.
And it emits something into the front end, which is now illegal syntax.
Right. So
now,
if you now
illegal
copy that
syntax,
output and try to use it as input, you'll get a syntax error because, of course, on input, that looks like a context with no symbol.
Okay, I admit this is pretty wild.
Yeah.
Can I make a suggestion?
Right. And if you did this in a debug kernel, you would get an assertion failure because, well, you have a something with head real, which is a floating point exception.
Kaboom. Look at that. What's that?
Sorry, what did you do that led to that? I didn't see what you did.
I think I just did a cut. I think I did a
of the numeric array.
Whatever the cell was that here. Let me put it back again. Oops. Yeah, I cut that.
Okay.
That doesn't seem like that should generate an exception.
No, it shouldn't. But that numeric array thing, that has its own dangers in the front end because the front end is trying to preserve everything in it, but again, it can lead to an a non-serializable thing.
All right. Can I make a suggestion? As a user at a user level, this is a horrible corner case. Let's be realistic. What about the possibility of a sort of a special character that represents nan? That is, for example, could be a syntax error if you put it in. Because I don't think we want to support a whole arithmetic system based on this. Or on input, it could evaluate.
Yes, and I don't think the sort of the early discussions with Piotr and Mark, who would, so compiler and import export teams who are obviously relevant here. I think our current thinking is, well, if you just have the whole numeric array, then you might want to just store that as data somewhere, and so maybe you just keep it there. But then when you try to extract it, then yes, we need to replace it with indeterminate. Or
I agree.
Yeah. So I think we actually have some internal functions. I would have to double check this. That will replace a nan inside of a numeric array with a specified value, so you can make them 0, right? It still has to match the type of the numeric array, but you could say replace them with zeros, or 3 if you think that all of your numbers are between -1 and 1.
Well, okay, but one criterion
which is
not,
which is not user level stuff. It's maybe the beginnings of user level stuff.
Okay, but one thing that seems important is to be able to round trip numeric arrays.
Exactly.
To external languages and things.
Exactly, which is why we don't want to immediately eliminate the nan.
Yeah, all right, okay.
By the way, by the way, that assertion was exactly what you might expect in the front end serialization code. The serialization for reals knows that it doesn't know what to do with nans, so it asserts because it's not expecting them.
Okay. Horrifying. It's what we get by having to interface with the jungle out there, complete with big snakes and so on.
Yes.
Okay. Held expressions. Look, I think what we just need is somebody, maybe Ian, maybe Itai, I don't know who, needs to go through what we've thought we needed for held expressions before, and let's bring them back again. I don't think this is as high priority as other things, because I think it's been it's a chestnut that feels like it's still some distance away from being roastable.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I'll just note there's a ticket assigned to me to do exactly what you just said and review the agenda. And
okay, fine.
I've just, not thought it was that high priority yet.
Right. It would be nice to get. Message replace. What's that supposed to do? That's a message is coming out from one symbol, and it needs to be replaced before it reaches top level. Is that correct?
That is the most elementary version of it. Yes.
How does that relate to message documentation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, these are all questions, and the only reason why we haven't brought this up is that you insisted that we have Christopher, and Christopher has.
Well, just ask him. I think he might have some more availability soon, but even now, perhaps. But you should just ask him.
Okay.
Okay. Let's look at these. All right, let's try going through these. Okay, a logging framework. That does seem worthwhile. Has any design been done on that?
No, and part of, I would say that sort of one issue is that it wasn't entirely clear to me sort of what kind of logging framework we're talking about and what sort of teams I should reach out to provide input.
Okay, so here's what I think. Just like we have Echo, which puts stuff out. Echo has been very successful in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that we didn't think of it print as being like Echo back in the day was a mistake, but that's water under the bridge. The point of a logging framework would be, I'm doing this computation, I don't want to spray stuff all over my notebook, but somewhere I want to log this. Now, I haven't thought through, like I'm spewing logging data out into some file somewhere.
Okay, so basically you want to be able to say, sprinkle something throughout your input code to say log this, and this just goes, with a timestamp and whatever other metadata we can think of into a file somewhere.
Or possibly a data drop or something like a data drop.
Okay. Right. So we'd probably want somebody like Bob S. in part of this conversation.
Yeah, I think so. But actually, that's a decent idea, which I think when we thought about this before, I'm not sure we had internalized. If we could make data drops lightweight enough, this could just go into a data bin. That would be the logging. And possibly even the functions that are putting it there could even just be data bin functions. I mean,
Okay.
if that could be lightweight enough, it might just work. Does that make sense? I mean, because we already have all that metadata stuff and so on. And yeah, I mean,
Are they good at doing processing or sifting at scale?
Not as good as they should be. I mean, but that we've wanted to redesign anyway. Yeah, actually, Sandra is asking, should it really be in a separate file, or should the logging data somehow be a metadata of the notebook?
I think you want flexibility.
I
can imagine
I think there are
circumstances
lots
where-
of cases that have nothing to do with notebooks.
Yes, that's for sure. But I mean, let me make the comment that persistence locations, I do not consider to have been a resounding success so far. Possibly because we don't have enough display of where things are being put. But I'm very nervous. When I say make something be globally persistent, I'm like, what the heck am I really doing here? And so, in other words, what are successes? What are not successes? I mean, for example, I consider, if I do if I do something like this, hello, computer, can you hear me? No, the computer cannot hear me. Well, whatever. So this is a bad example. Wow, this is a bug. What's it doing? It probably doesn't. It has no microphone.
Dude, you need...
Have you ever done this while you've been on Zoom before? I wonder if
Yes, I have.
Okay.
No, but I haven't done it on this computer. This is a different computer.
I was going to say, I think the last time I remember seeing you try to do this on Zoom, it also went badly.
Okay, well, all right, fine.
Because Zoom's going to be, fighting for your microphone, and
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Okay, in any case, it doesn't matter. But the point I was trying to make is that we have this notion of, where do you store the material? And I think those tabs have been working well, in my opinion. Like for me, when there's a too big output and it says, where do you want to store it? I like that very much. Does that make sense? No. What do other people think about that?
It's rare that I need to store something. Or
Okay, well, I mean, I quite often store it.
But it's ephemeral.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. But I quite often, I like this. I consider this a success. The only thing that maybe is not always a success is that the show more, show less is sometimes
more is sometimes less.
Well, if less is more, then sometimes more is less.
Why did this jump like that? Why did this jump? Why is it not?
What jump are you referring to?
Oh, because it's showing both the show more, show less. It's not a problem. Not a problem. Why this went to double decker. Okay, in any case.
Okay.
All right,
Yeah.
with the logging framework, I mean, we need to discuss it. Okay, I'm not sure. I consider it. I consider it medium priority, as you have indicated there.
Okay.
I mean, the main thing is high volume logging. And I think it's important I think we should look at it in connection with data drop. Okay, cyclic array. Boy, I would certainly use that. What do other people think about it?
Well, I guess the question is I mean, one question is, what do we want out of this?
This is a data structure thing, right? Like, I take
mean,
part a million of a thing that's really only 5 by 5 and it.
Or I
Yeah,
have an
I mean-
array that's repeating on a cycle and I want the millionth element or
Right,
infinite
and we have
arrays.
places where we have hacker-rated versions of this in grid. If you want, the thing to be, blue and white on successive rows and things, we have a way of
Yes.
specifying that.
Right, but in the grid case,
right,
it's you're
in
not
that
doing
case,
part.
in that
It's
case, it
Well,
fits
conceptually, you're doing part. You could-
conceptually, but implementationally, it may just be a wrapper that then gets the grid box code or whatever looks at it and goes, oh, okay, I know what I'm doing now.
Look, for me, this would be just like, I mean, the only issue is that something like center array, evaluates, okay? But cyclic array couldn't evaluate. I mean, I suppose sparse array doesn't evaluate either. Am I making sense?
it evaluates up to a point.
Yeah, okay.
Certainly, right. If you give you can give patterns, in which case it absolutely does evaluate, right?
Fine. Sander is commenting, what about having part have a cyclic option?
No.
Yeah, I think we want the
Well-
cycle to be a characteristic of the array, not the thing operating on it, right?
I kind of do too. I think it would be. I mean,
Right,
just argue with it. Just explain your no, Itai.
Right. So, well, well, I suppose I'm certainly objecting to it as an option, right? Because part can take multiple levels, and you may not want all levels to be cyclic.
Yeah, I mean, we could decorate the 3.
Yeah. I don't know. It just feels, well, I don't know, maybe.
Actually, this is not so terrible.
And it needs another argument, right? Or something?
No, it doesn't. The list is of a definite length.
But what's the difference between oh. It's right, okay, gotcha. I was thinking of something that would take parts 3, 6, 9 or something.
No, that's not what we're talking about. This is
Yeah.
This is a single part is being extracted, but it could be, I mean, the alternative would be part of list mod of I31, like that.
Yes.
That's
Right.
equivalent.
Right. Of course, the problem is what happened. Well, I suppose you could put a span inside of there, and then all the numbers are interpreted cyclically. But then how do you, right? So then suppose somebody puts in negatives, then how do you interpret that?
Thank you.
Right.
I mean, you just start at the end, right? I mean, I don't think that.
That'd be the first adverb to be a keyword in the Wolfram language.
Possibly. I'm not suggesting it seriously. Okay, cyclic, whatever.
But by the way, a question for my edification: cyclic list, cyclic array, are these separate concepts, or are they just 2 possible names?
2 possible names, I think.
Okay.
Right. And yes, part of what John is saying that is, he was under the impression that this was something that we had agreed on and has started, and I guess Jason A has started on implementing
something that had been semi-greenlit for an alternative way of doing cyclic parameters in options to grid, tabular, table view.
Okay, so that would require a cyclic array construct or a cyclic list construct. That would not be helped by this. And I have to say, the fact that this is so trivially doable with a mod doesn't make it extremely attractive.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, unless people are confused by how to do it, but that it's not really an argument.
I was going to say the mod is shorter.
Well, yeah, but this name,
but this cyclic option construct, I mean, there have been complaints about this in grid before, and we're we're now creating new stuff in tabular. So it'd be good to, to agree on what is the, canonical desirable thing here.
Okay. And is this really var args, or does this contain
No, I
list?
don't think so. I think it's probably a wrapper around a list.
Good.
Okay.
Right. Could it be a
okay.
wrapper?
In which case, yeah, in which case, maybe cyclic instead of cyclic list might be the right name. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And then the question is, for higher dimensions, do you go var arg or do you go list of lists?
You go list of lists, I would think. I mean, I don't understand what this would just be, cyclic in all directions.
Right. No, yeah, no. I'm just saying, like if you just think of like array, right? If you want to add more dimensions, you add them as additional arguments. You don't put a list in the second argument. So there's a case to be made that this case should be a sequence of lists rather than a list of lists.
Why?
But
I don't understand. This thing is a two-dimensional.
I just said that. I just explained why.
I was confused by what you said because I don't understand. When would this ever be? I understand that array. Wait a minute. Array doesn't do that either. I mean, array is just, F222. I'm confused.
Oh, you're right. What was I thinking of?
I think you're thinking of table.
Yes, I must have been thinking of table. So
Table is Verox like that.
I withdraw my assertion.
Okay. I think this is a pretty nice design, and I think we should investigate this.
Okay. Yes, and I like the fact that it's just cyclic and not cyclic array, because arrays in our language generally have definite, dimensions, and this obviously does not.
Right. So dimensions of this would fail. Right? Dimensions of cyclic would just fail. Do we agree?
Or is it the dimensions of the repeating part?
Nah, no. I think it should just fail. If you want the dimensions of the repeating part, say first of that.
Yeah, I think we'd want to discuss this with a slightly different group like Jose and Rob, who would have.
Fair enough. Okay, but I think this is the hypothesis initially.
Yes.
Okay. We're gonna have to wrap soon, but we'll continue this another time.
Okay.
This, Brett has had earfuls, and he will have more if this doesn't get fixed.
It's because I learned something about plot range padding the other day, but it goes probably not in the direction you wanted, but.
Yes, but I suppose you must be talking specifically.
Oh, I'm talking about something different. I'm talking about the grid, the graphics grid, and so on.
Yes.
Okay, but this is different.
But this is not that, right? You've sent emails like, should we add more padding by default? Should we change the default mesh? And I haven't enumerated all of the, all of the emails. Because
I think that's sort of okay, but there are cases where I've seen it where it isn't okay.
I mean, I think when you do do image size goes to 600 because the default padding is a scaled thing.
That seems okay. Well, that's not okay. That's starting to look stupid there. In my view, that padding is fine, but that padding is starting to look stupid.
Right. I mean, long ago, we had the headroom stuff where we bumped the vertical
Anyway, I think that's
things.
wrong. I think, and particularly, let me show you something else, which is very wrong. That just looks stupid. See, this looks very wrong. See that? That's just stupid. That's just horrible. Is there any excuse for that? Other than just we didn't think of it?
I think it wasn't a design concern at the time when this was being designed for
so
V6.
we need to fix this.
Okay,
so we've got a whole bunch of work to do on cleaning up graphics stuff. We also have got to deal with getting rid of chart style.
Yep.
And merging it with plot style. I'm just the number of times I'm done, particularly when you showed me yesterday that it was even buggy.
And chart style wasn't buggy, it was chart legends. But yes.
Yeah, but that means nobody ever used it. So it's so okay. So can you please, Brett, prep some of these things? Let's make decisions. Let's make changes. This shouldn't be terribly difficult to change, but that headroom looks wrong there, and that's whatever it is, that side room looks wrong there.
Is that just about the frame, or would it also be wrong without the frame? So without the frame, it's effectively an axis that crosses
Oh
a
no,
little
that
beyond.
looks just fine without the frame. It's the frame that's the problem.
Okay.
And by the
Right,
way,
I
the way
mean,
we deal with this,
that is the automatic plot range padding for that graphic, John.
Are the ticks colored differently in those two plots?
they sure
The
look
tick
like it,
labels
don't
look.
they?
The tick
I
labels
reported
look
that
like it, yeah.
last week.
Okay, so this is the front end bug.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. But in any case, this is a glitch. Just like with array plot, we do a nice thing when you put on the mesh, you lose the extra border. We got to do the same kind of thing here with frame. Make sense?
I
Brett,
understand what you want. I'm not sure how to get there.
Okay.
In a
Well,
robust way.
Okay. Then you need to show me all the cases and we'll go through them. Okay. Can we make sure we're in an LCC meeting real soon? Goes through those. And any other things like this that I haven't personally found. Okay. I would like to also say, again, with respect to design, that the multi-panel plots are unusable right now. And that what we want is something which takes plots, just, graphics grid is a success apart from the bugs.
Plot array or whatever we came up with as a name a month ago.
Yes,
plot grid. Okay, so that can we make sure that's on the
eventually
list and also on the project list?
Yep.
Say it again. Sorry, what?
Right. We came up with plot grid as a temporary name, but we conceded it might eventually just be merged into graphics grid with, extra stuff.
Okay, fine. But it's an important thing and it should be on the project list. I do wonder what the automated transcription system does when we talk over each other. It can listen to each of us separately. So it might actually resolve it better than we humans do.
That's an interesting question.
All right, send us the transcript of, timestamp 1502 EST and we'll
right. We'll determine what it actually did. Do we like that? The 10 to the minus 7s there. Do we have any choice?
Where are you? Oh, in the tooltip. Okay.
Yeah. Do we have any choice about that? John? Volts?
No, this is me.
we have
Brett.
choice about it.
Right, but I think, but then you need to display a lot more than 3 digits, and I think that's worse.
Yeah,
well, I mean, the alternative is that, it shows a 0 or something.
Right. Can we look at this? Because I think it knows the plot range. It could know that's a very small number relative to the plot range. You couldn't possibly have put the mouse on a place where, I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I kind of feel like that would.
I think it's the case that, actually, I know it's the case that plot doesn't actually sample at 0. Even though you said X goes 0 to 10.
Well, maybe it's good that it doesn't.
Yeah. And
it's
so it may
weird,
actually be
though.
hitting that as, actual endpoint type things. But it's got a little bit of resolution there, so.
It's a little weird. That is wrong. That is the wrong formatting. Come on. Isn't it?
That is interesting.
Well, what's the wrong formatting?
That is -2 in the exponent.
Yeah.
Well, it's 3 digits, so 0.07.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing to look at. Okay.
Yep.
Maybe 1 or 2 more here, and then we need to wrap up for today. This is a good meeting. We'll continue it shortly. Okay, this business. Okay, so this is the same thing that just came up yesterday with the name of the, with the color data thing.
Yep.
Right?
Is it? I don't think
the thing that was driving me crazy with color data was knowing what, the fact that I have to know color data 119 is the
6.
I'm never going to remember this.
I have no problems remembering it, and I didn't
Yeah.
even.
Okay. In any case, it is deeply druidic that we have, that is a default set of color choices. And, so we're now going to name it, what is it? Default, what is it
Default
called?
plots, colors.
Yeah, and then
I
default
believe.
plot colors V6 and so on.
Yes.
Okay, but in any case, that's one thing. But all of these things that are little lists of things, what methods can you use here? What in musical instruments are supported in sound? All these kinds of things.
What languages are supported for what functions?
Yes. So there are two choices here. And I mean, again, one is we just put them in the data repository and we document that. That has the advantage of flexibility. The other is we have something a bit like information, which is kind of ancillary data for functions. We could call it like settings information or something.
Right. So you're right. And I was a bit confused because I felt like I think there was going to be like a music instrument data or something, and
No, but
then
we
it was
didn't.
taken out, or
It's not the right way to do it. It's just not the right way to do it. There's a million things like that. I mean, the fact that there's a random set of MIDI instruments that's supported in this case, maybe on a different machine, it's a different set, and it's just a mess. I mean, maybe the right answer is something like settings information, and then it's for plot or something, and then it's just a ton of things here. And if you don't specify anything there, you get a giant association. Am I making sense? Let me give you an example of that.
not really.
What's that?
You're not really making any sense.
Well, let me
have
show you an
no idea
example of something which has been reasonably successful for us, even though it seems kind of very hacky. This function. Okay. So, I do things like this. I want to make a graph that has, that has a background, an edge style. I don't know whether I don't even know if it works that way. Is it like that? Yes, there we go. See what I'm saying? So, I don't know what happens if I just do that? No, nothing. Okay, maybe open, close. Yeah, okay. So then I get a giant collection of settings. See what I'm saying? I have to say, in practical usage, this has worked fairly well.
Right. So I would say, right. So I think there are a couple of different issues here that, we can discuss. Right. Because like the musical instruments, right, there's a fixed list of MIDI instruments that we support, right? Something like what's the default style for plot? Well, that depends on your style sheet. And maybe we only care about the default style sheet, but it might be nice if there were
the default's a good starting point.
Right.
Yeah.
But obviously last week I ran into a case where I wanted to look it up what it was for for a slideshow style sheet because I was creating animations that combine plots with manually constructed animations, and I wanted to sort of be able to compute the matching styles. So in that sense, having a function, at least for Viz stuff, I don't know that makes sense for everything, but it certainly makes sense for a lot of the Viz functionality.
Yeah. Well, I think for sound, settings information would be a not totally terrible name for the list of musical instruments and so on. I mean, because worst case is you say settings information of sound and you get a page full of gunk. See what I'm saying? And I mean, possibly even in the autocomplete for sound, I don't know whether that makes sense, but somewhere, certainly on the documentation page, we can point to this.
Well, it's really sound note, right? Because
yeah, it is. You're right.
Also, any kind of processing function that has complicated methods. You have methods that have 10, 15
Sub-methods and so on.
parameters. Yeah.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff. Shadi has mentioned this multiple times. Having a single function to retrieve these things programmatically would be excellent.
Right. I mean, but it might need to be conditional, on things, right? I mean, you have to say.
Right, but that's exactly what happens in this case. It's got tons of gunk, right? But the thing I'm telling you, as a practical user of this, the thing that's pretty nice is you don't know which actual corner, sort of path you have to follow. So you get something which just outputs more gunk. And then you look at the gunk and you say, oh, I want that part.
I'm
and
reminded of system information.
Yes, system information, I would say, is a little bit too big for this. In other words, you don't look at it programmatically. What I'm suggesting is that settings information would just be, pure
Well, I mean,
programmatic.
I think I was actually thinking the other way that, if you have this thing with lots of junk, maybe, a nice, browsable interface like system information uses.
I don't think it's necessary. I think that there are too many diverse cases. I think you want this. The whole point is you're going to use this programmatically. You're not going to use this for anything other than programmatic purposes. And for example, what I want to do is I want to map over all instruments, and I want to make a different sound, sound for every instrument type thing.
Right.
I need to, yeah. I
was just thinking, that sometimes, even if you're going to use something programmatically, there's a discovery process for what it is that you want.
I know, but you know the function name. That's the point here. I have to run.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure settings information.
Stephen, before you run, and I'm not disagreeing with the utility of this approach, but maybe you don't use system information programmatically, but I certainly do.
Oh, I do sometimes as well. I do sometimes as well too. But I don't even know how. Did we fix that of making system information? What am I even doing? That's not what I wanted. Of making system information show you how to get. Can you right-click things and it tells you how to get it programmatically?
You can mouse over, but it would be nice to have some kind of way to copy it or something like that.
You need to hover
There's
over
a copy button at the bottom there. But
well, but that copies the whole thing. What you want is to be able to get a new formulation which gives you just that piece of information.
There it is. It came up with a mouse over.
Yeah, that's what I said. There's a tooltip, but there's not a.
It should be a right click or something, or it should be just a thing where a click to copy. Why not just make it all click to copy?
Well, is the click to copy the code to generate it or the value that's there?
I think
this is related to a problem we've been discussing in the preferences dialog, where you want to be able to get code that is equivalent to a particular setting in the preferences dialog. I hadn't thought of that connection before, but now the connection is obvious.
I suggest click to copy because these things are not expensive to evaluate. Why not just evaluate them again?
Yeah, I mean, click to copy on the physical used or whatever, and then
just click to copy on. Well, yes, on this side here, the click to copy could be the value, but you click to copy this, and it'll just give you the appropriate drill down into system information. Seems good to me. All right, I have to run. This is a useful meeting. Honestly, we could pick up the pace of these because I feel like what we're not doing in this meeting is just generating oodles of work. It feels like a lot of these things are design heavy and not that implementation heavy, which means we got more to do here.
I would disagree about the implementation. There are plenty of things here. Even Cyclic is not that implementation easy.
No, it's not. Okay.
But bye, etc.
Yeah, that's hard. All right. Okay. See you guys soon.
See ya.
Thanks.